My name is Mare Martin, and I'm currently having an exhibition at Basin Arts in Lafayette. I'm very grateful to the people here for allowing me to be here in conjunction with two other artist friends, Kathy Reed and Stephen Breaux. And this has been a residency of 2 months' working here in the gallery, and I'm very grateful for this opportunity. So about my early life, I was born in Opelousas, Louisiana, and I am of Cajun descent, which I'm very proud of. I was raised on a farm, and my father was employed by the Department of Agriculture, and so we had a farm that was an experimental farm that covered all kinds of farm activities. And myself and my family of 5 children did a lot of farm work, and we had a lot of experiences. We had animals, horses, pigs, cows. We had vegetables that we sold to the local grocery stores. So from an early age, I have been connected with nature. And as far as beginning to be an artist, I think it was when I was really like 4 years old that I won some kind of contest, which is ridiculous because I think my mother probably helped me on it. But anyway, that's when I got the whim to be an artist. That's when I started. And my mother completely helped me in every way to encourage me, especially during my decision to go to art school at UL. And after that, at that time, the Artists Alliance was beginning to start, and I became one of the founding members of the Artists Alliance, which gave me a lot of opportunity to show. We had exhibitions every month, and so within a 2 or 3 year period that I was there, I got a lot of opportunities to show my work and to start working as an artist and selling. No, I usually just plant because I'm going to be using the vegetables to cook with and to eat. So along the way, maybe one particular plant will connect with me in a visual way or a felt way, and then I can use that and spend more time with it. And then hopefully it'll lead to a final piece like a painting. But it starts usually with a seed or a connection.
So what we have here?
This is it's not just mine. My sister and I and my brother share this garden. So right now, what we have here is a mostly vegetable garden and herbs. It's not really decorative like you'd think that a woman gardener would have. This is very productive and very functional. I use it to cook out of, to eat out of, and to make art out of. I use it in a cycle.
So walk us through one of the trees you used recently.
Okay, well, this one here in the back, if you look inside, you'll see the remains of a tree. It's a bay tree that froze, but I did a painting of it when it was alive, and I can show you that in the studio.
Yeah.
And that's one of them. And then these castor beans, I used them in the studio, dried along the walls. I didn't make an artwork from them, but I made an artwork with them. Okay, what I usually do, not every time, but when I'm working, when I'm beginning to look at a particular plant, and in this case it's cotton, and I got the seed from this plant in a cotton field, not around here, but it doesn't matter. But anyway, it shows I drew this plant from the seed for 28 days, and every day that I planted, that I drew from it, I would ask it questions or open myself up to anything that would come from it. So this is number 1, but I'm going to give you an image to look at closer. And then this is number 28. So for 28 days, I worked with this plant. And then after 28 days, I stopped, and then I used this information to start a painting. And what I did next is go to an actual, for this particular painting that I'm going to show you, I went to an actual cotton field in Washington, Louisiana, where I knew that it had been, the cotton had been planted there and the slaves had picked it. So this became a story about a seed that ended up as history. Since most of my activity is outside, except for the final painting, I don't need a big space. I just need this much space. So this is where I have the best light and the best privacy, and everything I need fits into here.
My name is Steve Breaux. I'm born and raised in Lafayette, Louisiana. I grew up here and really enjoyed the culture and the environment. I went to school and I got 2 degrees in art and became a university professor at the University of Louisiana at Lafayette. I taught a lot of different classes, but I started teaching art and computer and moved to drawing, in particular experimental drawing, in which I retired from UL about 3 years ago. I think that experience was extremely valuable for me to learn about art and how other people approach art and to respect other people's values about art. I came from a family that was very musical, so really I became a musician first in my early 20s, off and on for since that time. And during that time, when I was about 10 years old, I remember my family not being able to afford pencil and paper in particular, in order to draw. So they bought me a chalkboard, a blackboard, and I drew on the blackboard, and my mother really encouraged me to do that. And since then, I've also have done a bit of writing, and that was really my life that all the way up to now has been writing, music, and art. And I put a couple here so you could see what it was like in person. But here's where we dug the first hole that we were planting the seeds in a spiral. And those we didn't know if anything was going to come up because they were, we planted 60 seeds and only one came up actually. But we did get a good vine. And we planted it here, oriented it to Poverty Point. I didn't mention that, but I can just say that a little bit. So as here, after the whole thing came up, we had a bamboo trellis, and that trellis we took apart. So that was the nature part, nature process through art, making art through nature. And then we dug another hole here, and you can see we left the attachments, the silk attachments to the tree. Half this tree is dead, we had cut off, and I drilled holes and now extended nature. Nature gave this up, right? Half of it. So we said, how could we use art process to extend nature through a natural process? And then we painted the bamboo trellis, plus a little more. And then we had the whole thing extended here. You can see the others here too that we had. And that was the idea. This was part one, was planting. Part two was extending. And then part three we'll see inside. Well, I think right now it's a mixed bag. I'll just go to the heart of the matter now. The biggest problem is funding for the arts. And not just funding for the arts, but funding for the schools to give enough information. Hiring great teachers is very difficult now. So that is totally going to affect the quality of art in Lafayette. One of the things that I was involved in for several years is the building up of downtown. And I wasn't doing this personally, I was just around everything that was happening. The Artists Alliance had existed at that time, and then you see all the galleries downtown pop up. And what a lot of people don't realize is that when those galleries first popped up, they were first of all initiated by former UL students, plus former UL professors. And that was the beginning of the visual arts in the department at UL. That was the beginning of the formation of the arts. Plus, I can go back further than this because I did an essay concerning Bill Moreland. He was one of the first art department heads here. And he was a big influence on a lot of the now older artists, in which he built up the art department to the point where it was respected, all over the United States, including New Orleans, including, anywhere in the United States. It became really well known. And so that history of the museum comes out of a former UL professor, Herman Meer. The Festival International, Herman Meer again. A lot of the galleries, as I said before, opened up were actually by former students and professors. So when you have that for several years, and then suddenly, the funding drops off, it becomes very difficult. Becomes competing with other art competes with all other things. And a lot of times in this community, sometimes you get the feeling that the overall structure of it, the people in charge don't appreciate what art can do. And which I was so happy that Basin Arts has now popped on the scene, and I think it's an incredible space. But a space is people, and what is the attitude of the people? How do they engage with the artist is very important, and they have done just an incredible job, I believe.
I had a chance to hear from Steve Breaux, one of the exhibition or the residents here, and it was wonderful to kind of hear his thought process of how he's developing, and I'm really excited to see the next phase of what he's going to come up with now that I've kind of understood a little bit more about his methodology. So that's one thing I really appreciate, getting to come to a wonderful space and getting to meet some of the artists, hopefully, and kind of understanding, you know, the thought process. I was here for a soiree, the summer soiree fundraiser. I got to meet some wonderful artists, and once again, just connecting with artists in real life and getting to understand their process is a wonderful opportunity.
My name is Kathy Reed, and I am a visual artist. I retired from teaching for the Lafayette Parish School System. I was teaching talented visual art to high school students. And it's wonderful to be retired and to be able to just do what I want. Well, I was always attracted to art ever since I can have memories of anything. I was a pretty solitary kid. My dad was in the military. We moved every 2 years, and it was hard to make friends and then leave them. And so I ended up always being the new kid at the school and having a lot of time to myself to spend by myself before I made friends. And I was always interested in drawing and in making things. I taught myself a lot about how to sew, and I was interested in doing really anything creative. I learned how to cook at a real young age. My mother taught me some things, and I learned how to do a lot of things like that. I used to design clothes for my dolls. I never really liked playing with the dolls, but I liked making clothes for them and paper dolls. And I can't remember a time when I was not drawing and making things. As a student in college, I came in without really a clue at all. And I remember one art class, it was a 2D design class that this really wonderful teacher, Bob Russett, taught. And he sent us outside, with paint. Everybody was supposed to go outside and paint from the landscape, but he said he didn't want a landscape painting. What he wanted us to do is to find some plastic elements, is what he called them. And I still remember that in the landscape that the painting was going to be about. And so I went out there, and it was like a switch had been turned on that I didn't know was there. I started seeing things that I hadn't seen before, and came back with this painting. Everybody was supposed to come back, I think, after the 2 hours or whatever, with something. And I was amazed at what I had done, because it was unlike anything I had ever done. And so that experience changed how I looked at ideas for my work. And I've been trying to figure out since then what I'm doing. You know, it's an evolving process. For the Art and Nature show at Basin Arts, it was really a good experience, because we were able to just make something happen. We didn't have to go in with a preconceived idea. We were responding to the theme, and that's sort of how I've been working since that experience in college, responding to the theme, and the theme comes up intuitively for me. And you know, as a result of a lot of observation and attention on what I'm looking at and what I'm reading and what I'm writing. Okay, this is part of that same project.
Go ahead.
Okay, this is the remains of the dream. That's what we titled this piece. These are the pieces of painting that we dug up that Steve was talking about when we buried the seeds and the bitter melon plant, what was left of it, in the hole and watered it. I think you have pictures of all that Steve was going to send. But if you look at it carefully, you can see these little sparkly things. We had painted the paper. This was the remains of 2 paintings on paper. And we had painted the paper with this iridescent medium so that it would look like it was light. And this is all that remained when we dug it up. It was all in fragments like this. And what I did is I took it and I collaged it onto a piece of paper that we decided we wanted painted a kind of a blue for the dream. And these were some seeds that actually remained on top of the pieces of paper that we had painted on. So I painted those red so they would show. Well, before you get to a finished product like painting or drawing or whatever, there is a lot of process that goes into it. A lot of people draw in their sketchbooks. I like to keep sketchbooks. Steve keeps sketchbooks as well, where I do drawings and writings, and I go outside every day and just look at what's around me. And I come in and I write things about it, and I do little drawings, not necessarily trying to plan a finished artwork, but all of this is material that I can draw from. And things like today, when we were outside filming, I found this little bird's nest on the ground by where we had done our dream project. Apparently the birds took some remains of string that were still on the ground and some pine straw from my raised garden bed and made themselves a little nest. It's things like this that excite me. You know, just looking, going outside and looking and picking up stuff. I find feathers all the time. Steve goes for walks and finds money, but feathers come to me. So all of these things give me ideas for not only to draw or paint the way they look, but they mean something. They mean more than their physical state. So I find pods, and they're beautiful. You know, it's about looking. It's about seeing things that everybody might see laying around on the ground or hanging from something and not really notice the beauty of it. You know, natural forms really, really interest me. But I'm not a landscape painter. I don't paint just what I see. Oh, he's bringing the bowl of money. This is from his walks. When he goes walking every day on campus, he finds money. I find things like this and feathers.
So how is this natural and this natural too? How do they? So she finds these things. This is what I find, and this is all money I found in a parking garage that I go walking in. Just pennies, $20 bills, $5 bills.
The question, I'm curious why you haven't used the money.
Because I want to collect it.
Okay.
Probably the same reason we not that bothered about selling our work.
It would be nice to sell work. We're not saying we don't want to
Right.
sell work, but it's not our motivation for making it.